The air crackled around them, not the good kind of buzz you get at a party, but the kind that makes your hair stand on end. She eyed him from across the table, the same boring table in the same boring dining room of their way too expensive house. He looked shrunken in his seat, hands twitching nervously as he picked at his food. "Can you pass the salt, honey?" He practically squeaked it out. Pathetic. A slow grin curled her lips. "Sure can." She slid the salt shaker so close to the edge he'd have to stretch. He did, fingers trembling slightly, and there it was, that spark of fear in his eyes that sent a thrill down her spine. She savored that look, knowing he saw it reflected in her own eyes. Dinner dragged on, conversations about work, his pathetic attempts to impress her with stories no one cared about. Blah, blah, blah. She barely heard him over the roar of her own boredom. All she could focus on was the other man in the room, her best friend. What was his name again? Dan? Dave? It didn't matter. His laugh filled the room, a stark contrast to her fiancé's whiny voice. It drew her in, made her feel something other than disgust for the first time in ages. He wasn't some sniveling wimp who'd roll over at the slightest push. This man exuded a raw, barely contained energy that made her sit up straighter. She got up, claiming dessert duty as an excuse to escape. In the kitchen, she glanced over her shoulder. There, Dave, definitely Dave, was looking at her. Not with pity or judgment, but something hot, something challenging. "Need help with that?" His voice was low, a rumble that made her shiver. She scoffed, "I'm not helpless." His grin was pure trouble, wasn't implying that. But maybe working together could be fun, shake things up a bit. His hand brushed hers as he reached for a plate, electricity shooting up her arm. That's when she knew the game had changed. This wasn't about controlling some sad, little man anymore. This was about something bigger, something dangerous. And damn, she couldn't wait to play. This wasn't just about breaking her fiancé down, it was about letting him see her with this new man. This man who made her feel alive in a way she'd forgotten. It was about revenge, sure, but it was also about breaking free, about claiming her own power. And she'd enjoy every second of it. The second his car pulled out of the driveway, she was on the phone. "Booked," she said, her voice cold. "Usual room, tomorrow." A click on the other end, and it was done. No long goodbyes, no sweet nothings, just the logistics of their affair. Businesslike, efficient. That's the way she liked it. It made it easier to pretend this was all just a game, the kind she was damn good at. Her fiancé, Mike, was it Mike? Honestly, she barely remembered his name these days. Came home every night with some stupid bouquet or a box of chocolates she'd throw away. Like that was going to make up for her barely looking at him. The look of hurt confusion on his face was almost fun. Twisted, yeah, maybe, but after everything he'd put her through, the bland life, the sniveling obedience, it felt damn good to finally be on top. "Hey, honey," his voice was too cheerful, grating. "Brought you a little treat." She didn't even turn around, just gestured towards the trash overflowing with wilted roses. "Save it." Come on," he whined. "Let me spoil you." The urge to laugh was almost overwhelming. The only spoiling happening was her, spoiling their precious little life. It wasn't even about Dave anymore, not really. It was about power, about shattering the image of this perfect couple everyone thought they were. And seeing the cracks form, the desperation in Mike's eyes, made every illicit rendezvous, every lie, even sweeter. Dave called later. That was the routine now. No more flirty banter at parties or lingering glances across dinner tables. Cold calls to arrange their meetups. The thrill had dulled, replaced by something heavier, darker. There was guilt, sure, but mixed with a strange rush at the danger of it all. Something wrong? Dave's voice was sharp. Had he sensed the shift too? Nah, she lied, just tired. Long day. "See you tomorrow then," he said, a hint of suspicion creeping in. As she hung up, Mike peeked around the corner. The hopeful look vanished, replaced by that pathetic resignation on his face. She almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The hotel room was stuffy, smelling of stale perfume and cheap takeout. Not exactly the romantic getaway she'd pictured back when this all started. Dave was pacing, a scowl replacing his usual cocky grin. "This isn't working," he muttered, kicking a discarded sock. "We need to slow down." She bristled. "Slow down and let him get suspicious?" Her voice was sharper than she intended. "Babe," he sighed, "I know you hate him, but it's reckless. We're gonna get caught." That familiar fear snaked through her, but pride pushed it back. "Don't be such a wimp," she snapped. "We've been careful." "Careful?" He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Leaving your earring at his apartment as careful?" The blood drained from her face. How could she have been that stupid? She could lie to her fiancé, to herself, but not to Dave. He wasn't some love-struck fool. He saw her, saw the desperation, the way this twisted little game was unraveling. The fight devolved. Angry words flung back and forth, the once shared thrill now replaced with mutual resentment. He called her selfish, she accused him of cowardice. When he finally stormed out, the door slamming behind him, she didn't even try to stop him. The silence of the room was deafening. For the first time, doubt cut deeper than the thrill of revenge. Was this all worth it? But then, her phone buzzed. A text from Mike, flowers on their way home, a heart emoji, and some other lovey-dovey crap she couldn't stomach. A fresh wave of rage washed over her, drowning out any voice of reason. No, she wouldn't back down. This wasn't about Dave anymore, or even revenge. It was about refusing to be trapped, about taking what she wanted. And damn if she'd let those stupid flowers and Mike's puppy dog eyes change a thing. He had become a ghost in his own life. His once bright apartment felt like a tomb, filled with leftover takeout and the lingering scent of her perfume. Sleep was impossible, each night spent replaying the last few months like a broken record. Where did it all go wrong? The answer was always there, of course. It was in the way she refused to meet his eyes, the flinch when he touched her. But denial was cozy. Suspicion was a cold, unforgiving thing. So, he waited, a desperate hope clinging to his heart that he was wrong. And then, the proof. A text meant for her lover, flashing on the screen of her carelessly discarded phone. Something snapped inside him that day. He didn't cry or scream, maybe he should have. Instead, with chilling calmness, he took her phone. Each day after work, he'd disappear. Tailing her became his new routine, a pathetic and obsessive one. His hands shook as he fumbled with a cheap camera, documenting their rendezvous outside dingy hotels, the way her cold facade would soften the moment she saw Dave. Every recording was like poison coursing through his veins, turning his love to a burning hatred. But he couldn't stop. It was his only form of control, his way of staying afloat in the wreckage of his life. Word must have gotten back to Dave. He called her one night, his voice panicked. "He knows," he hissed. "I can see him. He's following us." She snapped back, cursing and accusing Dave of paranoia. Their argument filtered through the phone, harsh and angry, ending with a hissed, "Stop calling me." A strange relief washed over him. Their world was crumbling, and maybe he could find solid ground amidst the ruins. One evening, as they sat across from each other in their favorite restaurant, the one where they'd had their first date, he could bear it no longer. Right there, as Dave touched her hand under the table, all pretenses shattered. "You disgust me," he choked out, the carefully gathered evidence spilled out onto the white tablecloth. Photos, dates, voice recordings, irrefutable proof of their betrayal. Her face went white, that cruel mask finally dropping to reveal a flicker of raw fear. He almost expected a denial, another lie. Instead, she straightened, anger stiffening her spine. "And what are you going to do about it, darling?" She sneered, her voice laced with defiance. The whole restaurant seemed to go dead silent. Heads turned, whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Her cheeks burned, shame and rage warring within her. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. He was supposed to cry, beg her to come back. This public humiliation, it was unthinkable. Across the table, Mike's face was a mask of cold fury. Gone was the pleading, pitiful man she had known. This stranger, the one looking at her with such utter disgust, was terrifying. "Get out," he said, his voice low and deadly. "Just get the hell out of my sight." She scrambled, desperate to maintain some shred of dignity. But the photos were scattered across the table, a stark gallery of her betrayal. Someone gasped, others pointed, her stomach churned. This was how it ended. Not in a blaze of passion, but in the greasy aftermath of a public meltdown. As she stumbled out the door, flashes of their life together mocked her. All the parties, the dinners, the smiles for their so-called friends, worthless now. There was nowhere to hide. Word would spread fast, turning her into a pariah. Back at her desolate apartment, she expected Dave's call, some excuse, a plan. Instead, silence. The phone remained stubbornly quiet, a testament to his cowardice. He'd vanished, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Fury bubbled up, but underneath, a sickening realization bloomed. She had no one. Mike was gone, her reputation was in ruins, even her precious, best friend, had cut and run. Her apartment, once a luxurious haven, now felt like a prison. In the bathroom mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes, always so sharp and defiant, were filled with a fear she'd never known before. The first sob tore through her, a raw, wounded sound. This wasn't triumph, this was defeat. And as the tears finally flowed, a bitter truth dawned. She wasn't just alone, she deserved to be alone. The nights stretched into an endless abyss. Sleep was a cruel joke, her mind a relentless projector playing scenes of their final confrontation over and over. His quiet voice, full of scorn, echoed in the darkness, each word a fresh blow. And underneath the anger, always the shame. How could she have been so blind, so selfish? With trembling hands, she'd compose texts, desperate pleas for forgiveness. They were never sent. Each draft felt pathetic, the words hollow against the magnitude of what she'd done. The fact that he never responded, not even with a hateful message, only deepened her despair. Her phone became a torture device. A happy couple's selfie on her social feed was like a punch to the gut. News of a mutual friend's engagement made her physically ill. The world hadn't stopped just because hers had imploded. And then, the worst of all, whispers of Mike moving on. A fling, maybe more. The image stung more than she cared to admit, but even worse was the crushing realization that she had no right to be jealous. She had forfeited that long ago. One bleak afternoon, her doorbell rang. It was Dave, not the charming, cocky version. This one was gaunt, a shadow of his former self. "Nice job you did," he spat, not even bothering with a greeting. "My life's in the toilet thanks to you." She expected rage, but he just looked tired, defeated. His words were brutal. The whispers, the sidelong glances from former business associates, his own crumbling relationship. "You think you're the only one who got burned?" He sneered. "We both lost everything." His accusation hung heavy in the air. She had no defense, no clever comeback. Her own misery suddenly felt small compared to the damage she'd caused others. Her ruin, it seemed, wasn't hers alone to bear. The grocery store used to be neutral ground. Now, it felt like a minefield. Once familiar faces hardened the moment they spotted her. An old friend, Lisa, pretended not to see her, fumbling with her phone to avoid eye contact. The humiliation was a slap in the face, a constant reminder of how far she had fallen. Her carefully crafted professional image was worthless now. Job applications disappeared into a black hole, once promising interviews ended with vague excuses. Her stellar resume couldn't erase the gossip. Difficult personality, they'd whisper, not her need to control, once an asset, was now a mark of disgrace. The apartment, with its pristine decor and expensive emptiness, mocked her. Days bled into one another. The ambition that used to fuel her was gone, replaced by a suffocating sense of failure. Her phone buzzed constantly, but only with spam calls or the occasional petty text from her mom. She'd lash out, pushing even those who cared further away. One rainy evening, a detour led her past Mike's old building. She shouldn't have looked, but some masochistic urge drew her eyes upward. There, in a lighted window, was his silhouette, another woman nestled against him. They were laughing, their bodies intertwined in a way hers and Mike's had never been. A sob escaped her throat. This wasn't righteous anger anymore, but pure, devastating pain. She'd imagined his loneliness, maybe even secretly hoped for it. But he'd moved on, found happiness without her. And with that realization came another, hitting harder than any insult or rejection. She was the architect of her own misery. Every cruel word, every manipulative act had come back to bite her. And the worst part? She couldn't even blame anyone else. Her thirst for vengeance hadn't just poisoned those around her. Ultimately, she had poisoned herself. The pillow muffled her scream. It was always the same nightmare. Mike walking away, not in anger, but with chilling indifference. She'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, the echoes of his disdain ringing in her ears. Some nights, she'd lie awake until dawn, replaying every mistake, every hurtful word like a broken record. The wine bottle became her constant companion. A glass to take the edge off turned into two, then three, then the whole damn thing. The burn in her throat was a welcome distraction from the burn in her heart. But with the buzz came the tears, the desperate need to reach out, to explain, to beg for forgiveness even though she knew it was useless. Dave, of course, ignored her calls. She didn't entirely blame him. They were both caught in the wreckage, collateral damage of her own stupidity. But the silence from him was the harshest. He had been her partner in crime, her confidant. Even his anger would have been better than this void. Her mom called daily. At first, it was a lifeline, someone who still cared. But the calls started to feel like check-ins, a way to ensure she wasn't spiraling too badly. Their conversations were strained, full of awkward pauses and well-meaning but useless advice. "You'll get through this," her mom would say, yet they both knew she brought this upon herself. The apartment, with its expensive furniture and unused kitchen, became a cage. She'd have to leave, soon. She couldn't afford it anymore. Her savings were dwindling, replaced with a stack of unpaid bills and credit card debt. The job hunt turned desperate. She applied for things beneath her skill set, even lied on some applications. But always, the ghost of her reputation followed, casting doubts, leading to rejections. Finally, a lifeline. A dingy bar needed a waitress. The pay was awful, the hours long. But when she slipped on the tacky uniform, a bitter laugh escaped her. This was rock bottom, humiliation in a polyester blend. But as the first rude customer yelled at her for a drink refill, a strange sense of clarity washed over her. This was her life now, the consequences of her actions made real. There was no going back, only forward. And maybe, in that acceptance, a small, fragile seed of change could start to grow. She always seemed to run into them at the worst possible moments. Mike and his new girlfriend, Sarah, at the supermarket, looking disgustingly happy as they picked out avocados. Or at the park, their laughter echoing against the emptiness of her own life. Each encounter was a fresh wave of humiliation, a reminder of everything she'd thrown away. Sarah was nothing like her. No sharp edges, no carefully polished facade. She carried herself with an ease that seemed unattainable now. With them, Mike looked relaxed, truly content. The realization wasn't just painful, it was infuriating. He deserved all this after what she put him through. The invitation arrived in a sleek silver envelope. Their engagement party. She wanted to shred it, burn it, pretend it didn't exist. But some twisted curiosity compelled her to go, to witness the culmination of her downfall firsthand. The rented hall was beautiful, all twinkling lights and tasteful decorations. She hid in a corner, her throat tight, watching him put a ring on Sarah's finger. Their smiles, the genuine affection between them, was a physical ache, a phantom limb reminding her of a love she'd amputated. Later, as the crowd thinned, Mike spotted her. His expression was unreadable, a mix of pity and revulsion. He said nothing, simply turned and walked away, Sarah's hand tucked securely in his. Even in his kindness, he couldn't hide the vast gulf between them. The drive home was a blur. The anger had evaporated, leaving only cold, relentless despair. As she finally collapsed into bed, sleep refused to come. In the unforgiving silence, she finally had to face the truth. She alone was responsible for her loneliness, her loss. The need to control, to dominate, that had led her down this path, leaving her isolated and unloved. The next morning, she didn't reach for the wine bottle. Instead, she found the number her mom had scrawled on a sticky note weeks ago. A therapist specializing in people like her. The word stung, but she dialed the number. If she wanted her life back, she'd have to dismantle the woman she'd become, one painful piece at a time. Therapy wasn't some miraculous cure. It was grueling. Each session peeled back another layer of her brokenness, the childhood insecurities fueling her need for control, the twisted ways she'd equated love with power. Dr. Evans was patient but firm, never allowing easy excuses or self-pity. The apologies, when they finally came, felt pathetic. A stilted voicemail to her mom, a half-written letter to Mike she could never send. Self-forgiveness, Dr. Evans explained, wasn't about erasing her mistakes, but about taking responsibility and choosing to live differently. The bar job was her lifeline and her constant humiliation. But she showed up on time, faked a smile, and even started saving tips in a chip jar for a rainy day. Small victories, but they were hers. Friendships were harder to rebuild. She reached out to a few old acquaintances, tentative lunches filled with apologies and awkward updates on her dumpster fire of a life. Some were kind, but detached. Others less forgiving. She couldn't blame them. Trust, once broken, wasn't easily mended. One Saturday, her bored scrolling led her to a sign-up for a soup kitchen volunteer shift. She expected it to be another exercise in self-flagellation, but the work was simple, the people grateful. Helping, with no expectation of anything in return, felt foreign, yet strangely fulfilling. A year crept by, then another. She got a dingy one-bedroom apartment, a promotion to bartender, slightly less tacky uniform, and even a fledgling friendship with a coworker, formed over spilled beers and shared bad date stories. There were bad days, of course, when the loneliness was a crushing weight. But there were good ones too. She never saw Mike or Dave again. Sometimes, she'd hear about them. Mike had kids now, Dave was running his own company. There was a pang of regret, maybe even longing, but mostly a detached acknowledgement that their lives continued without her. As did her own. The extravagant wedding dress she'd purchased in a whirlwind of delusion was donated to charity. It was a symbolic act, letting go of a fantasy future she didn't deserve. She wasn't the same person anymore, not completely broken, not fully healed, just different. Wiser. And that, in itself. Tuesday morning, I'm in our kitchen, whipping up pancakes, the smell of coffee filling the air. Tom, my husband, comes in, grabs a mug, and plants this kiss on my forehead like he's off to save the world, not just heading to his tech job. It was like something out of a cheesy rom-com, but it was our life, and I loved every bit of it. Fast forward to Friday night. We're at Luigi's, the kind of place where they know your order before you even sit down. Halfway through the meal, Tom drops this bombshell. He's like, "What do you think about us having an open relationship?" I nearly choked on my spaghetti. He said it'd make us stronger, but all I could think was, is this guy for real? Took me a whole week of, what the hell? Moments before I said yes. I figured, maybe it's like adding jalapenos to your pizza. You're scared it'll burn, but sometimes it just works. Tom was stoked, said it proved how much I trusted us. Then, bam, along comes Alex. Met him at this little gallery downtown. He had this vibe, like he could see right through to your soul with that camera of his. I hadn't felt a spark like that since Tom. And when I told Tom about him, expecting World War III, he was all for it. Go explore, he said. I swear, if he was any more chill, he'd be a snowman. Alex and I hit it off big time. Ended up spending a weekend at this cabin he knew about. It was like stepping into another world, one where it was just us, our stories, and the stars. Felt like I was finding pieces of me I didn't even know were missing. But coming back home, that was like stepping into a freezer. Tom was distant, glued to his laptop, and every conversation felt like pulling teeth. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, like I'd walked back into the wrong life. So, there you have it. My picture-perfect marriage was starting to look a little less perfect. And me? I was smack in the middle of it, trying to figure out if the heat I was feeling was from the new spice in my life or the beginning of a house fire. Let me tell you, nothing says good morning like finding a receipt for a diamond necklace you definitely didn't get for your birthday. It was just another Tuesday, or so I thought, until I reached into Tom's coat for the car keys and out comes this piece of paper that might as well have been a grenade. And that wasn't the end of it. Tucked behind it was a hotel booking for a weekend I spent at my sister's. Talk about a wake-up call, right? I spent the whole day pacing around the house, that receipt burning a hole in my pocket. Part of me wanted to just throw it in his face the second he walked through the door and watch him squirm. But then what? I couldn't shake this fear that confronting him would be the final nail in the coffin of whatever was left of us. So, I chickened out. I decided to play the part of the clueless wife a little longer. That's where Alex came in. Remember Alex? The photographer with the soulful eyes and a laugh that made you forget your troubles? I called him up, half hoping he wouldn't answer, so I could say I tried. But he did, and before I knew it, I was pouring my heart out to him over coffee in this dimly lit cafe that suddenly felt like the only safe place in the world. Alex, bless his heart, didn't even try to offer solutions. He just listened, and sometimes that's all you need, you know? The plot, as they say, thickened when I bumped into Sarah at the grocery store. Sarah's one of those people who knows everything about everyone. She casually mentioned seeing Tom out with this young intern from his office. They looked cozy, she said, stirring her coffee, oblivious to the bomb she'd just dropped. My head was spinning. Was this the mystery girl from the I couldn't just sit and stew in my own jealousy and hurt? I needed to know more. So, I did what any sane person would do in the 21st century. I hired a private investigator. Sounds drastic, I know, but desperate times call for desperate measures. A week later, I got an email that felt like a punch to the gut. Photos of Tom and the intern, looking way too close for comfort, and a string of messages that left nothing to the imagination. Armed to the teeth with evidence, I waited for Tom to come home. My heart was racing as I laid it all out on the table, literally. The photos, the messages, the receipts. His face went through 50 shades of red and white. And then, the kicker, he blamed our open relationship. Said it was yes, that opened this Pandora's box. As if his lying and cheating were somehow my fault. It was surreal, standing there, watching the man I married try to squirm his way out of the web of lies he'd spun. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something. But I didn't. I just stood there, silently mourning the death of the trust and love I thought we had. It was clear as day that whatever we had, or thought we had, was gone. And no amount of talking was going to bring it back. So, where did we leave off? Oh, right, the showdown. Picture this. It's D-Day in our cozy living room, which suddenly feels more like a battleground. I'm there, standing my ground, while Tom's on the couch, looking like a kid who got caught stealing cookies. I lay it out for him, plain and simple. It's her or me, Tom. Your call. I felt like one of those badass heroines from the movies, you know? But here's the kicker, Tom. He doesn't miss a beat. Looks me dead in the eyes and says, I choose her. I love her. Just like that. As if our years together meant nothing. As if they were just a prelude to this in turn. Talk about a gut punch. I was so stunned, I couldn't even cry. It was like all the air got sucked out of the room. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in this dark, too bright office across from a lawyer who's rattling off about assets, custody, alimony. Words that felt too cold and clinical for something as messy as a broken heart. I nod along, pretending to understand, pretending I'm not just thinking about how it all came to this. Then the divorce proceedings start, and let me tell you, it's like war. Every meeting, every call, it's just attack and defend. Tom and I, we turned into strangers, throwing barbs over who gets the coffee table and who screwed up more. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart on some trashy TV drama. But here's where I decided I wasn't going to just roll over and play dead. I was hurt, sure, but I was also angry. Furious, actually. So, I cooked up a little plan to even the score. I had all this dirt on Tom's affair, thanks to my detective stint, and what better way to use it than to send it all to his company's HR? Anonymously, of course. I was shaking as I hit send on that email, but boy, did it feel good. Didn't take long for the bomb to go off. Tom got suspended, pending an investigation. His perfect career, the one he always put before everything else, was suddenly on the line. And me? I couldn't help but smile at the thought of him squirming, trying to explain his way out of this mess. So, there I was, feeling like I'd scored a point in this twisted game. But it was a hollow victory, you know? It didn't bring back what we had, didn't heal any wounds. It just made me one of those people who sought revenge. And let me tell you, sitting alone in that big, empty house, I realized revenge might taste sweet, but it sure as hell doesn't fill you up. You know, when you start down a path of revenge, they say you should dig two graves. I never really got that until now. So, after the whole HR debacle, I wasn't done yet. Nope, I had more cards to play in this twisted game. I went full scorched earth and leaked the whole sordid affair to every industry blog that would listen. And boy, did they eat it up. Tom's name was mud, plastered across headlines and trending on social media like some kind of cautionary tale. I remember sitting there, scrolling through the comments, seeing the world tear him apart. Part of me was thrilled, like I was finally getting some justice. But another part, it felt like watching a car crash in slow motion, horrifying, but you can't look away. Then came the divorce settlement. The day we signed those papers was supposed to feel like victory. I walked away with the house, a fat chunk of his assets, and a sense of triumph. But as I stood there, in that big, empty house that used to be our home, the wind felt empty. It was just me and the echoes of a life that used to be. And Alex, the one person who'd been my solace through the storm. He dropped the news like a bombshell. He was leaving, moving abroad for a job opportunity he couldn't pass up. Just like that, I was alone. Again. It felt like the universe was playing some cruel joke on me, stripping away the people I cared about one by one. With the divorce public and the scandal all anyone could talk about, my social circle shrank to the size of a postage stamp. Friends we'd shared for years suddenly had other commitments, and the invites dried up. I was the pariah, the woman who'd aired her dirty laundry for the world to see, and now I was paying the price. Sitting in that silence, the weight of my decisions pressing down on me, I started to reflect. What had all this revenge gotten me? Sure, Tom was suffering, his career and reputation in tatters. But me? I was more alone than ever, haunted by the ghost of our marriage and the love we used to share. The satisfaction I thought I'd feel was just a mirage, leaving me emptier than before. It hit me then, that saying about two graves. My revenge hadn't just destroyed Tom, it had taken a piece of me with it. I'd set out to make him pay, but in the end, the cost was mine to bear. I was left to wonder, was it worth it? The answer, as I sat in the quiet of my too big, too empty house, was clear. No, it wasn't. So, there I was, trying to stitch my life back together, one piece at a time. I figured, hey, why not dive into something new, right? So, I picked up painting. Not that I was any Picasso, but slapping paint on a canvas felt kinda therapeutic. And I even joined this local book club, trying to find some kind of connection, some sort of distraction from the mess. But here's the thing about trying to fill a void. It's like throwing pebbles into an ocean and expecting a splash. The loneliness was still there, gnawing at me. Every brush stroke, every page turn, I was reminded of what I'd lost. It wasn't just Tom I missed, it was the us we used to be, the team, the partnership. And the money, sure. The divorce settlement left me financially secure, more or less. But every time I looked at something I bought with that money, it felt like I was trying to buy happiness. Spoiler alert. It doesn't work. There's this emptiness that fancy things just can't fill, a kind of hollow feeling when you realize that no amount of shopping sprees can patch up a broken heart. Then came the party. You know, one of those gatherings you go to, telling yourself you're back in the game. Except, there he was, Tom, looking like he hadn't a care in the world, laughing and chatting with the intern, now not so much an intern from the looks of it. Seeing them together, so happy, it was like a punch to the gut. We ended up talking, if you can call it that. It was the most awkward exchange, all polite nods and cold smiles. None of the warmth, the inside jokes, or the easy banter we used to have. It was like talking to a stranger who looked a lot like the man I married. I walked away from that conversation feeling colder than I had in a long time. And just when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, I heard through the grapevine that Tom had landed some big shot position at a rival company. Great, right? Good for him. Except, hearing about his success felt like salt on an open wound. It wasn't that I wanted him to fail, but it made me wonder what I was doing with my life. That's when it hit me. The real loss wasn't just Tom or the marriage. It was me. I'd lost myself in this whole ordeal, caught up in revenge and bitterness. And for what? He'd moved on, and here I was, stuck in the past, nursing my wounds. So, yeah, there I was, trying to figure out my next move. Starting over sounded great on paper, but the reality was a lot messier. It was like I was learning to live all over again, trying to find joy in the little things and make peace with the big things. Not easy, let me tell you. But maybe, just maybe, it was possible. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. Picture this. I'm sipping my morning coffee, already dreading the day, when I get this letter. Tom's suing me. For defamation, no less, because of the whole scandal I'd unleashed. It felt like a bad joke, you know? Here I was, barely hanging on, and now this. The community backlash was swift and brutal. Friends, or what I thought were friends, turned their backs on me. Whispers at the grocery store, pointed stares at the post office, and an inbox full of hate mail. It was like I was the villain in their story, the one who'd stirred the pot too much. I tried to keep my head high, but let me tell you, it was tough. So, I started to rebuild. Or at least, I tried to. I threw myself into work, took up jogging, anything to find a semblance of normalcy. But it's hard to rebuild when the foundation's been rocked, you know? Everything fell off, like I was living someone else's life and doing a pretty bad job at it. Then came the holidays. You don't realize how much you lean on another person until you're going through the motions alone. Decorating the tree, watching those cheesy movies, even cooking dinner, it all felt empty. The loneliness was like a constant shadow, a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. The court date loomed over me like a dark cloud. Standing there, in front of the judge, facing Tom and his lawyer, I've never felt so small. He looked at me, but there was nothing there. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. It was like we were strangers. And when the judge ruled in his favor, ordering me to pay damages, it was the final nail in the coffin. Not just for our marriage, but for the life I'd known. I walked out of that courtroom feeling defeated. The weight of my choices, of my revenge, hit me like a ton of bricks. Financially, I was a mess. Emotionally, even worse. It was in that moment, walking alone to my car, that I finally understood the cost of my actions. I'd wanted to make Tom pay, to hurt him like he'd hurt me, but in the end, the person who paid the highest price was me. Reflecting on everything, I realized revenge might offer a momentary satisfaction, but it's fleeting. And the aftermath, the loneliness, the community turning their back on me, the legal mess, it wasn't worth it. I'd lost so much more than I'd gained. I wish I could say I found some profound peace or that I had an epiphany about forgiveness, but life isn't a movie. All I knew was that I needed to find a way forward, to somehow pick up the pieces of my life and start again. But this time, I knew revenge wouldn't be part of the story. So, here's the deal. I've been trying to move on, really trying. Focusing on work, hitting the gym, even took up meditation, anything to stop the past from haunting every waking moment. But it's like my life's become this movie on repeat, where every good part is shadowed by what went down with Tom. Then, as if I needed more drama, work hit a snag. Projects I was banking on got shelved, and those legal battles? They just kept coming, like waves crashing over me, each one threatening to pull me under. It felt like every step forward ended with me 2 steps back. In the midst of this chaos, I found a sliver of hope, or so I thought. Started volunteering at this local charity, helping out at the food bank. It was supposed to be my shot at redemption, a way to make something right in a world where I'd made so much go wrong. For a while, it felt good, meaningful even. But at the end of the day, I'd go home to an empty house, the silence a stark reminder of my solitude. That's the thing about professional success. It's supposed to make you feel accomplished, proud. But every achievement felt hollow, echoing in the emptiness of my place. There was no one to share it with, no one to say, hey, great job. It's like I'd built this wall around myself, brick by brick, and now I was trapped inside it. One night, sitting in the quiet of my too big, too empty living room, it all hit me. The weight of everything that had happened, the choices I'd made, and where those choices had led me. It was this moment of painful clarity, realizing that the damage done wasn't just to my marriage or my social life, but to my very soul. I'd changed, morphed into someone I barely recognized. Someone who chose revenge over healing, isolation over forgiveness. And in that solitary reflection, the truth was undeniable. I'd lost more than a husband. I'd lost a part of myself, that hopeful, loving part that believed in second chances and happy endings. The journey from love to betrayal to revenge had left me a stranger in my own life. So, here I am, acknowledging the change, the transformation that's both armor and prison. I sit alone, not just in my home, but in my existence, pondering what comes next. The future stretches out, a blank canvas that's both terrifying and liberating. There's no redemption arc waiting, no magical resolution to tie up the loose ends. The story ends not with a bang, but with a whisper, a quiet acceptance of the solitude that's become my companion, the peace found in surrendering to the journey, no matter how lonely it may be. It's not the ending I wanted, nor the one I worked for, but it's where I am. And maybe, just maybe, it's the first step towards something new, something real. After all, when you've got nothing left to lose, you're free to the bathroom mirror lies. It says I'm fine, flawless mascara, the right pouty but not too pouty lipstick. But inside, I'm a wreck, just waiting for the first crack to show. It's stupid, I know. But this morning feels different. Heavy. Like the air's gone thick and sticky, and I might suffocate. My phone buzzes. It's Jason, of course. 3 years today, and all he can manage is a text. Running late, meeting's a drag. Dinner on me later? I tap out a quick, okay, wanting to throw in a smiley face, but it feels false. We used to be hard emoji people. Now it's like, I don't even recognize the language of our relationship anymore. God, I need more coffee. The office machine spits out sludge, but it's caffeine, so I'll take it. Everyone's in a chirpy mood, celebrating some sales thing that means nothing to me. My boss, with his wandering hands and, you look amazing today, Sarah. Comments that make me want to shower and bleach, gives me a wink. I force a smile and try to blend into the wall. Gina. Bless that girl for being so relentlessly positive, intercepts me. Come on, Sarah. It's Friday. One drink to celebrate? Normally I'd be down for this, but today, a drink sounds like the worst idea ever. But saying no to Gina is like trying to stop a tornado with a kitten, so I end up in some noisy bar, sipping a gin and tonic that tastes like regret. Gina's all bubbly about some rondo she met, but her words are a blur, the music too loud. My head throbs, and this gnawing dread in my gut won't quit. It's not just the anniversary thing, even though Jason's text stung like hell. It's like everything's off kilter. The more I drink, the less sense the world makes. I should get a cab, but I'm suddenly bone tired. Home it is, then. Stumbling past the doorman, I think I hear him laugh, but it could just be the ringing in my ears. The apartment is dark and cold. For a moment, I'm relieved Jason's not back yet. The quiet is good, but then it hits me again. That thick, suffocating feeling, only now it's worse, laced with loneliness. I should be happy, or at least pretending to be. We have a life people envy. But right now, standing in this empty, perfect apartment, all I feel is this hollowness inside, and I swear, if I listen hard enough, I can actually hear it echoing back. My head feels like someone used it for a drum solo all night. The world tilts on its axis as I sit up, and oh God, the nausea. Sunlight stabs through my eyelids, and all I want is darkness, to disappear back into the oblivion of sleep. On the nightstand, a note from Jason. 2 sentences, the usual excuse of a client emergency. I snort. We're 3 years into this marriage, and I still fall for that? Then the hugs and kisses, tacked on like an afterthought. It taunts me, mocking the hollowness echoing between us. My phone buzzes. It's Mom. Just checking in, sweetie. Haven't heard from you in a while. The voicemail icon flashes, and a familiar guilt twists inside me. She means well, but her voice is a chirpy accusation, making me feel like a terrible daughter. Delete. I can't deal with that today. The fridge offers nothing but wilted salad and a questionable yogurt. Whatever. I collapse on the couch, ordering greasy pizza because even the effort of microwaving leftovers is too much. The TV blares out some stupid rom-com where the girl always gets her happy ending, and it makes me want to hurl. To distract myself, I mindlessly scroll through Instagram. That's when I see it. Gina's post. It's all smiles and cocktails. The caption. Wild night with the best coworker. And there I am, in the background, blurred but unmistakable. But something's wrong. A flash of memory. A touch on my waist too insistent to be friendly. A laugh that rings all wrong in my ears. Had I been that drunk last night? Fear coils like are in my stomach. Don't worry, have your back. Gina texts back, and instead of relief, I feel my insides curdle. What the hell does that even mean? My hands shake as I type, trying to sound casual, but Gina's cryptic replies only make the knot in my gut tighten. Later, driven by a desperate, gut-twisting need for answers, I do the unthinkable. Jason's laptop sits on the coffee table like a silent accusation. I know this is wrong, an invasion. But the echo of emptiness, that hollowness inside me, it screams louder than my guilt. His call history is bland. Clients, colleagues, the usual. Emails are nothing revealing. But then, a ping from that stupid hotel booking app. A flash of ice shoots through my veins. The dates. They match Jason's emergency trip. And the guilt I feel isn't towards him. It's the sickening realization that somewhere, buried deep down, I always kinda knew something wasn't right. Stepping into the office is like walking into a firing squad. Eyes that were friendly yesterday now feel cold, assessing. Did they know about the photo? Is there a neon sign flashing? Cheater's wife. Above my head? I paced on my best. Everything's fine. Smile. But it cracks under the weight of their stares. Whispers follow me down the hallway. Laughter that cuts off when I turn. The hushed tones like flies buzzing around a rotten piece of meat. My stomach churns, the pizza threatening a return appearance. Every glance feels deliberate, scrutinizing. Am I paranoid, or is everyone in on some sick joke at my expense? I find Gina by the water cooler, her usual chipper self replaced by wide eyes and a carefully blank smile. I corner her. What the hell is going on, Gina? That photo, the comments. Did you tell people? My voice cracks, a pathetic squeak betraying my desperation. Sarah, I don't know what you're talking about, she says, her voice too high-pitched. Then she does that thing people do when they're lying, the overcompensation. You were smashed. I just helped you get home safe. It's so obviously fake that it makes my blood run cold. That night, Jason calls. His voice is flat, almost bored. More apologies about being away, promises to make it up to me. All said with the emotional depth of a robot reading out instructions. My careful questions are met with curt answers. The warmth, the spark, whatever was left of it is utterly gone. My dreams are a jumbled mess. Shadows dance just out of reach, whispers echoing my name, laughter that chills me to the bone. I wake up in a cold sweat, the sheets tangled around me like a shroud. Loneliness claws at me, a suffocating weight pinning me to the empty bed. Every inch of my life is now contaminated. I sniff Jason's shirts, that once familiar scent now overlaid with a hint of something feminine, perfume I don't recognize. He's always on his phone, turning the screen away, the hushed murmurs sounding urgent, secretive. My old demons are back in full force. The ones that tell me I'm not good enough, not pretty enough, that of course this would happen. I push myself harder, the runs turning brutal, my reflection in the gym mirror a gaunt stranger. Then, like a gift from some twisted god of irony, proof. A receipt crumpled in Jason's pocket. That damned boutique hotel, the date a fiery brand matching his life-filled trip. It sits on the kitchen counter, an accusation in black and white. I don't confront him, I can't. Instead, the receipt becomes my talisman. A reminder that the hollowness echoing inside me, it's the damn truth. The world is a smear of colors, sounds, and a throbbing headache that won't quit. I feel raw, exposed, like someone scraped away a layer of me, and what's left is this jittery bundle of shame and desperate need. The suspicion is a living thing now, clawing at my sanity. I need escape, not the wine, and a crying rom-com kind. I need oblivion, a reset button for my brain. My phone is a lifeline to a world I never thought I'd explore. Late at night, the flickering screen illuminates words like discreet, fantasy, no strings. It's a shameful thrill, clicking through profiles of men hidden by blurry photos and suggestive usernames. Then there's Mark. His words aren't like the others, the crude propositions or cheesy pickup lines. He seems lonely. His messages echo those hollow spaces inside me. We talk for hours. The anonymity is strange comfort. I confess things I've never even admitted to myself. The emptiness, the fear, the aching need to feel something. The idea of meeting him takes root, a reckless seed sprouting in poison soil. It's wrong, insane, but the thrill of it drowns out logic. I find myself dressing with a care I haven't felt in ages. Red lipstick, heels I haven't worn since our wedding. It's a performance, but for whom? Myself? Mark? Does it even matter? The bar is a swirl of smoky darkness. Mark is surprisingly handsome, a disarming smile cutting through my nerves. He's all attention, his gaze lingering a bit too long, his hand brushing mine. The drinks come quickly, blurring the edges of my guilt. His words are a balm. We talk not of sex, but loss, that hollowness you carry when everything feels like a lie. Sometimes, he murmurs, voice low, you just need a night to forget the maps, you know? And God help me, I do. We leave together, the city a neon dreamscape. His touch on my back is electric, and I hate myself even as I crave it. The hotel room is swanky, impersonal, and I drown in it. He is gentle, then rough, then it's all a blur of sensations that chase away the echoes, if only for a few desperate hours. Leaving the next morning is both a relief and a new horror. The walk home is a gauntlet of judgment. My reflection in shop windows mocks me, makeup smeared, yesterday's confidence a tattered rag. Yet, under the sickness, there's a flicker of something else. Power? Anger? A reckless defiance? I don't know, and honestly, I don't want to think about it, not yet. My skin feels like it's crawling with 1,000 invisible insects. Looking in the bathroom mirror is torture. The stranger staring back has smudged mascara, bloodshot eyes, and a hollowness in her expression that wasn't there yesterday. I scrub at my face, but the feeling won't wash off. Sneaking out of the hotel had been disgustingly easy. A mix of relief to be gone and a deep, gnawing shame battled for dominance as I hailed a cab. Mark's number was blocked before we even reached the highway. Like a bad habit kicked cold turkey, I craved the distraction of his messages even while hating myself for it. Home isn't a haven anymore. It's a suffocating echo chamber for my guilt. The scent of Jason's aftershave is a trigger, his favorite mug a silent rebuke. Our wedding photo, once a symbol of something good, now mocks me with its forced smiles and fake happiness. I shove it in a drawer, but the damage is done. Work is a special kind of torture. Every email feels like a coded message about my night. Every ring of the phone makes me jump. Was it all a big joke? Had I imagined Gina's known smirk, the sidelong glances from colleagues? I swear I can hear their whispers even when I know they're talking about something else. Jason's back. At first, it's almost a relief. Then I see it. The distance in his eyes, the curt nod replacing his usual kiss. He asks about my week, and my lies stumble out, clumsy and obvious. His touch, a hand briefly on my shoulder, feels like a burning brand. Is it suspicion? Or has he just given up on us? Sleep offers no escape. Nightmares twist fragments of the hotel room with flashes of Jason's disappointed face, the laughter from Gina's photo ringing in my ears. I wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air, convinced the ceiling will cave in and crush me under the weight of my own deceit. Isolation eats away at me like acid, telling someone, sharing the burden, feels like the only way to breathe again. Gina is the obvious choice, but the image of her innocent smile flashes a warning in my mind. What if she wasn't protecting me that night? What if this was all a twisted game, and I'm the fool being played? The shame is a living thing now, consuming me. Is this what I've become? That desperate woman, seeking cheap thrills in anonymous hotel rooms? Yet, mixed with the revulsion is a flicker of something else. I felt alive that night, awful as it sounds. Is that worse than the numbness, the hollowness that was suffocating me before? My phone buzzes on the nightstand, the vibration a jolt of pure terror. I don't need to look to know who it is. The words on the screen sear into my brain. Having fun, sweetheart? Maybe we should do it again sometime. It's Mark. But this isn't the lonely guy from the bar. This voice is cold, cruel, with a hint of amusement that makes my blood run cold. The next message is worse. A photo. Me. In that damned hotel room. The look on my face. Shameful, desperate. He has more, he promises, even worse ones. My world implodes. This isn't just about a reckless one-night stand anymore. It's about ruin. My hands shake so badly I can barely type a reply. What does he want? Money, of course. It's always money. A sickening dread settles over me as I agree, promising to pay whatever it takes to make this nightmare go away. But he doesn't just want money. The demands keep coming. A weird favor. Delivering a package, no questions asked. Meeting someone in a shady part of town. Each task drags me deeper into his twisted game, and the fear is a constant companion, squeezing my heart until I can't breathe. Jason notices, of course he does. The chasm between us has grown so wide, it's its own kind of hell. His attempts at reaching out, at gentle questions, make me want to scream. If he only knew what I was becoming, the lies I spin with growing ease to cover my tracks. Then, a glimmer of something resembling hope. Gina corners me in the office kitchen, concern creasing her brow. Sarah, seriously, what's going on? You look like hell. Her words are an unexpected lifeline. Something snaps. Maybe it's the desperation or the strange flicker of trust one feels towards her now. Over stale coffee, I confess. Not about the hotel, that's too shameful, but about the blackmail, the fear, the feeling that I'm being crushed by forces I don't understand. Gina surprises me. There's no pity, no judgment. Just a steely edge to her voice as she says, "Okay, idiot, we're fixing this." Her practical, no-nonsense attitude is a bomb. We make plans, clumsy ones at first, but the act of doing something instead of drowning in fear feels like breathing after being held underwater. Is she a true friend, or did she play a part in this from the start? The suspicion lingers, even as I cling to the only lifeline I have left. I'm living a double life. There's work Sarah, who's all fake smiles and, sorry, gotta take this as I duck into empty stairwells for hushed calls with Gina. Then there's the shadow Sarah, running errands for my blackmailer, heart hammering with a mix of terror and a fury so sharp it burns my insides. Gina's a godsend, I never imagined bubbly. Let's do karaoke. Gina would be hacking into IP addresses and tracing burner accounts like some dark web ninja. While I'm dodging Mark's increasingly bizarre demands, she's digging up his real life. Work emergencies are my pathetic excuse to disappear for hours. Jason watches me with those sad, suspicious eyes. It's torture. I want to scream at him. You have no idea what a real emergency looks like. Each light chips away at the foundation of US, whatever fragile thing was left. Mark delights in his power. Now it's not just cash, it's public humiliation. Picking up a package in a crowded bar, wearing a ridiculous hat. Leaving cryptic notes in places I know Jason sometimes frequents. The shame is a fiery coal burning through me. But with each encounter, a cold anger replaces the fear. I start paying attention. The way he moves, his nervous laugh, the too bright blue of his eyes. I log it all. feeding Gina fuel for her digital fire. And then, breakthrough. I've got a name. Gina whispers during one of our panicked coffee breaks, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. It's not some random sleaze, Sarah. It's someone closer, potentially someone you know. My world tilts sideways. Someone I know. My mind races through suspects. Angry clients? Slimy coworkers? But Gina doesn't have all the pieces yet, only fragments of an identity she's carefully assembling. The waiting is worse than the knowing. Each text from Mark. Every ridiculous task takes on a new dimension. I scrutinize everyone colleagues, the barista who smiles too widely, even a grumpy-looking man on the bus. Is one of them the monster behind the mask? The suspicion seeps back home. An offhand comment from Jason, a casual question, and my mind races. Does he know? Is he playing some twisted game of his own? The once familiar landscape of our apartment seems littered with traps, every shadow a potential accusation. Gina's working overtime, piecing together digital crumbs. I'm fueling her frantic search with my own obsessive observations. It's a desperate bid to reclaim some shred of control, turning the hunted into the hunter. Though, even if we expose him, then what? The destruction he's wrought on my life, my marriage. Can that ever be undone? The park bench is cold, the sun doing nothing to chase away the chill that's settled deep in my bones. But it's not fear I feel now, it's a strange, simmering rage. Part of me still can't grasp that I'm meeting my tormentor, the architect of my private hell, in broad daylight. He's late, of course. Power flex, making me wait. When footsteps crunch on the gravel, I don't look up. Let him sweat a little. Then, the voice, the one I hear in nightmares. Well, finally getting smart, sweetheart. I spin around and the world explodes because it's Ben, Jason's best friend since childhood. The guy who's been a fixture at every birthday, every holiday, every casual dinner in our home. Bile rises in my throat. I choke out. He just smirks, that arrogance I never noticed before oozing out of him. Disgust twists inside me, a sickening mix of revulsion and a blinding fury. He lays it all out. The petty jealousy festering for years, the resentment of Jason's perfect life, and his sick satisfaction in tearing it all down. His focus on destroying me, in particular, makes my skin crawl. Then, the flashback hits. Christmas party, Ben's hand lingering too long on my back. The accidental brush-ups in the kitchen. Jason's birthday, Ben's eyes hot on me as I laughed at a joke. It's all there, hidden in plain sight, the twisted puzzle pieces finally coming together. Ben's still gloating, thinking I'm broken. I put on my best act, play the scared, desperate woman. Inside, though, I'm ice-cold focused. Okay, Ben, I say, my voice shaking just enough. I'll get you more money. But I need a day or so. His ego swells. The bait is taken. I hand him the envelope Gina so carefully prepared. Fake cash with a tracker Gina built in, our little sting operation. As he greedily checks the contents, I dial 911, keeping my voice a terrified whisper, describing a robbery in progress. Then it's a flurry of blue uniforms. Ben's confusion, his shock, it's almost comical. Gina times it perfectly. Hacked traffic cam footage plays on the officer's phone, showing Ben dropping blackmail notes, delivering suspicious packages. The look on his face when he finally comprehends the trap is almost worth the hell he's put me through. The aftermath is a blur. Ben hauled away, screaming accusations of a setup. Gina by my side, a whirlwind of efficiency as she talks to the cops, her bubbly persona a steel shield. And me, feeling strangely numb. Is this what justice feels like? It's not a joyous victory. It's more like staring at the ruins of a house after a hurricane, known you have to rebuild, but not yet certain how. The police station is a blur of fluorescent lights and stale coffee. I've lost track of how many times I've told the story, first to the cops at the park, now to this grim-faced female detective. Ben's rants about me setting him up fade into background noise against the pounding in my head. Then comes the moment I'd been dreading. The detective looks up and says, "We need to bring your husband in." Jason arrives, looking like he's aged 10 years in the past few hours. I watch his face shift from confusion to shock, to a cold, gut-wrenching understanding. The confession spills out of me. Not dramatic, just exhausted. The hotel, the blackmail, Ben, every shameful piece of the puzzle. Jason doesn't rage. It's worse. It's the chilling emptiness in his eyes that breaks me. Our living room feels like a stage for a bad play. His voice is hoarse. Not just Ben, Sarah. You lied to me. Each word is a hammer blow. My apologies sound pathetic, even to my own ears. We spiral through the same circles of blame and betrayal, and with each turn, the distance between us stretches into an uncrossable void. He looks around at the space we built together, and it's like he's seeing it for the first time. All the holidays we had him here, he mutters. The unfinished sentence is more brutal than any accusation. We both know there's no fixing this, no going back. Gina, once again, is my lifeline. She takes over when I'm too numb to function. Lawyers, logistics, cutting through the red tape of divorce proceedings with a ruthless efficiency that's both alien and comforting. A strange sisterhood forged in the wreckage, I guess. The move is brutal, from our house, full of memories both good and now bitterly tainted, to a tiny studio apartment that echoes with its emptiness. Each unpacked box is a weight crushing my already fragile spirit. News trickles through about Ben, charges filed, bail denied, a very public fall from grace. In a normal world, I might feel vindicated, but all it is another echo. More destruction, different flavor. Sleep offers no respite. It's either nightmares that jolt me awake, gasping for breath, or a crushing exhaustion that makes even getting out of bed an act of will. Gina forces food on me, drags me out for walks when the crushing apathy threatens to swallow me whole. Is this rock bottom? Because if it is, it's a far darker and lonelier place than I ever imagined. The therapist's office smells faintly of stale tea and forced optimism. It's my least favorite place in the world right now, but Gina browbeat me into it, and I'm too drained to fight. The therapist, all soft smiles and concerned frowns, asks how I'm doing. I want to laugh. How am I doing? I'm a dumpster fire. That's how I'm doing. Instead, I dredge up the words they expect. Rebuilding, I mumble, one day at a time. It sounds so strong. Rebuilding from what? The ruins of my marriage? My reputation? My sense of who the hell I even am anymore? The divorce papers are no surprise, but the finality of it all still hits like a punch to the gut. Jason's neat signature, severing the ties that once held us together with a single stroke of a pen. We're strangers now, legally. The rumors swirl around me like hungry vultures. Whispers in the grocery store, pitying glances from people I once called friends. Did you hear about Sarah? They murmur, savoring the spice of my downfall. The cheating wife, that's all I am to them now. Some nights, the shame burns so hot that I swear it'll leave scorch marks on my soul. Yet, there are small flickers in the darkness. Lying awake in my too quiet apartment, I'm honest with myself. Okay, I was reckless, made stupid choices when I was desperate to feel something. But then, his malice isn't on me. I was a pawn in his twisted game, another victim of his need to control and destroy. Then there's volunteering at the women's shelter. Gina dragged me, and at first, I wanted to run. But hearing the stories, manipulation, gaslighting, all the forms of silent abuse, it's like hearing echoes of my own ordeal. And in those shared stories, a strange kind of healing begins. You're strong, an older woman with sad eyes tells me after I haltingly stumble through my story. Not the strength I would have chosen, but strength forged in a crucible of pain. I walk home that day with a different kind of ache inside me. Something shifts. It's not forgiveness of myself, not yet. But it's an understanding. Every scar tells a tale, and mine could have meaning. Gina, ever the whirlwind, finds me groups, survivors of abuse, outreach initiatives. I hesitate, then plunge in. Awkward, fumbling at first, but speaking my truth, however ugly, gives it less power. The final image isn't dramatic. It's me, standing at the window of my tiny apartment, looking out. No tears, no self-pity, just a quiet determination. The past is a wreckage, but the future, it's uncharted territory. And for the first time in a long, long time,